Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. It is episode 194 of the flagship show here on a Sunday. I'm your host tonight. I'm Colin Armstrong. So say every week, guys, it's not just a podcast that we have here at Gersnet. You can get onto the website. You've got the forums there. There's articles, match previews, all that kind of stuff. Frankie's obviously got his social media. There's a history archive on the website there as well. So get yourself onto that. We would ask you to promote the pod and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. It's easy for me to say. So yeah, if you could do that, that would be great. Get the word out there and let everybody know what we're doing. Before I move on and introduce my guests, I have to mention our partners, Forrest Precision Engineering, who are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company. They have been a big commercial supporter of the club for a number of years. You can get them on the website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a fantastic new hospitality area within the main stand. If you want to visit that, get yourself onto the Rangers website and email hospitality@rangers.co.uk. So on to my guest for this evening. I'll bring in Chris first because he's been on the pod before I introduce our special guest tonight. And how are you, Chris?
Not too bad, Colin. How are we?
Not bad. Decent weekend in terms of the football, other than that result today. But yeah, we're looking good. Good result through the week, which we'll go on and talk about. You know, the Champions League, all that kind of stuff. So, you're looking forward to your jaunts abroad?
Yes, as I was saying to Frankie, just want to come on there. Just had a quick phone call with the guys in the office to try and sort the group stages. So, unfortunately, there's more demand than there is going to be tickets available for these ones. Unfortunately, but hoping to certainly get to Amsterdam for the first one, and then hopefully try and get to Anfield as well. So, all these games just brilliant ones to look forward to. Some great tips in there. I'm sure there'll be a few Rangers fans heading along as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to Anfield. I might have a ticket, so I'll see how that gets on. So I might see you in there, who knows. So on to our special guest, someone who's living the dream, someone who grew up supporting the club and is now playing for the club. It's the captain of the women's team, Kathryn Hill. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to being on. It's exciting.
You sure?
Well, I'll say that again at the end of the show. We'll see how it goes.
But like before we go on and talk about the weekend stuff and Rangers getting the Champions League, we should talk about what you are doing over at the women's team there, doing well in the league and also doing well in the Champions League. A good result against, I always struggle to say this, is it Ferencvaros?
Yeah, I think you got it. Yeah. Obviously, first time for the Champions League for the women's team, so we didn't really know what to expect. We had 2 tough games over there in the heat against Ferencvaros and then PAOK, but 2 wins and through to the playoffs, so we're waiting on the draw, and it's an exciting time for the club. Champions League for the men, obviously, and hopefully we can take that next step as well.
Yeah, it'd be good. And from a personal point of view, Kathryn, you are someone who grew up supporting the club. I've seen some of your stuff on social media, posting photos of yourself as a youngster with Rangers tops and all that on. You are literally living the dream. I suppose the question I'm coming to here is what's it like to play for the Rangers?
Yes, it's been amazing. Obviously, I was at Rangers a long time ago when I was younger, kind of under 17s, then women's squad before I moved to America, then Durham. But it wasn't professional at that time. So now that I've come back and it's fully professional, and just the way the women's programmes run now is brilliant, and you can see why they had success last year with everything that they provide us with. So it's amazing. Obviously driving into the training centre every day and seeing the Rangers badge and stuff, you do have to pinch yourself, but at the same time it just kind of makes you appreciate every single day that you're doing that, and obviously I just want to be successful in my time here.
Yeah, and obviously you wear the armband as well. You must take a huge amount of pride in that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise to me. Obviously I just came back in the summer, and I think the good thing about our team is we've got so many leaders, so I'm obviously the lucky one, if you like, that gets to wear the armband, but it is a case of having so many leaders in the team, and that's why it's been so easy for me coming back in as well. So I don't think it's just down to me. There's so many experienced players as well in that team, and I think you're going to need that to be successful as well.
As a young lassie, final question, favourite player?
Barry Ferguson.
Yes, that's I don't get the hatred for Barry. I must admit, or not the hatred, but he gets a bit of stick.
Yeah, he does.
I don't get it. I mean, all right, some of the stuff he says is a bit annoying, but I loved Barry as a player. I thought he was a different class.
Yeah, first time round the Rangers, I wore the number 6 because of that. So that was my number because I just loved watching him growing up. But yeah, legend in my eyes.
Thank you. I'd agree with that, Kathryn. You can come back anytime, pal. Right, on to yesterday's game. Chris, I'll start with you. Ross County 4-0, convincing result and a convincing performance. I think it could have been a lot more if it was not for Ross County's goalkeeper, the boy Laidlaw. I thought he had some tremendous saves. So yeah, overall a fairly routine day at the office, and 3 points, well deserved.
I think if you're going to come back from a really tough European night in midweek, 4-0 over Ross County at Ibrox is about as straightforward and as comfortable and as pleasing as you could have hoped for. It ticked all the boxes. Slightly surprised at the team selection. I thought Gio might have mixed up a wee bit more. That'll probably come on Tuesday night now, but I thought it was really a professional performance. Went out, started well, good tempo about them, got the goals at good times, and as I say, Colin, it could easily have been 5 or 6. I don't think we'd have got to 9, unfortunately, but it really could have been a lot more comfortable. I actually almost felt sorry for Ross Laidlaw, because the goal that beat him also took a deflection off Ben Purrington, I think it was.
Yeah.
And until that point, he had made a couple of really good saves and kept County in it. If Rangers had scored in that first 10-15 minutes when they were on top, it could have been a whole lot worse for Malky Mackay's side. But from Rangers' point of view, just really straightforward and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, sticking with yourself, Chris, the starting 11. I mean, I was on the train coming through when the team was announced, and the first thing that stood out to me was just the one holding midfielder. Gio's he's been pretty sort of stubborn and going with 2. Obviously, the disappointing result last week at Easter Road. There is a feeling that, at the start of the season, that we haven't started games very, very well, and we're not chasing teams and going after them as much as we should. Is that maybe a sign that he's thinking the same now, that actually against some of these teams, or okay, in Europe we go with the 2 sitting midfielders and try and protect things a wee bit, but at home against certain teams in domestic games, we can afford to be a wee bit more attack minded.
I think at Ibrox, every game apart from the Celtic game, I think you should now go with just the one. Even your Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen's at Ibrox, there's no reason to be giving them the respect of having 2 holding midfielders in there. You maybe see it at Easter Road, going to Pittodrie, certainly going to Parkhead. Every other game, I just don't see the requirement for it. If you don't start positively and on the front foot and go at teams, you just allow them to settle in, you allow the opposition to get into rhythm of the game. Ibrox gets a wee bit frustrated if there's no goal in the first 20 minutes, and you just put pressure on yourself. I thought that the approach on Saturday was far more like it. The team selection sent a message of, we're here to win this game early on, we're going to put it to bed, and that's exactly what Rangers did.
Kathryn, coming to you now, the first sort of moment in the game was probably the most controversial moment and involved James Sands. I'm coming to you, and this is your position as a defender and how you would sort of feel about it. Now, I've looked at the 2 incidents again today. I would argue they are both bookings. The first one, I would argue James Sands maybe has a good claim in the fact that he was fouled initially. That's up for debate. But he gets the booking after he fouls about the boy after that. The second one, I mean, I would have to say it looks like a booking to me. As a defender, if you'd committed that, how would you be feeling? Would you be looking at the referee thinking I could be in trouble here?
Yeah, I think if I committed it, you just run away and hope that the ref doesn't do anything about it. No, I think I don't actually remember the first one. I've not seen it back. I've obviously seen the second one. I was at the game. I've seen the second one back on social media, but I think second one probably was a yellow, yeah. But, I also seen someone say on Twitter, these decisions even out, and obviously we know the Lundstrom one last week got rescinded and then, so I'm just going to take it as that's evening out for last week's sending off.
Well, it's an interesting point. Is that maybe in the back of Don Robertson's mind as he makes that decision? He's thinking, well, there was a huge stushy last weekend. The referee got it wrong. If I pull out the red this time and I've got it wrong, it could lead to further problems.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I don't really know how refs would approach that, but I think maybe it was because it was quite early in the game, but still the first half, and he maybe didn't have a clear idea of it. I think the first one as well, he's maybe realised that he could have potentially gave a foul against Sands in the first place, so maybe that was in the back of his head, but I think we got away with it, but comfortable winning then, so not too bothered with the refs' decisions.
Chris, is that a possibility? Don Robertson's thinking about, what's happened last weekend and just thought, well, you know what, I need to be 100% sure.
I think he's probably just made the wrong decision. I don't know if in that split second, if that's enough time for that thought process to go through it. I think in all refereeing incidents, you're looking for the ref to make the right call, but then to make consistent calls. So you think back to Easter Road last week, the Lundstrom challenge that you sent off for was no worse than Doyle Hayes earlier in the game. So if one's punishable that way, then the other one has to be. If Sands' first yellow card is a yellow card, then I think the second one has to be a yellow card as well. Maybe an argument the second one's actually a straight red. You're just asking for a bit of consistency from. It's not as if it's consistency from week to week and from referee to referee. It's guys making judgment calls on two not identical things, because nothing is, but two situations that are very, very similar, but making two calls that are very, very different. I think that's what frustrates players and managers and fans and press, because there's no rhyme or reason why both incidents should have been treated differently. But for whatever reason, Don Robertson decided that he would treat them differently. I think you could tell by the fact that Sands came off at half time. Rangers knew they got away with one, and of course they couldn't afford to take the risk.
On a sort of side issue, Kathryn, as Chris pointed out there, Sands came off at half time, but I think it's worth pointing out that Leon King done very well when he came on. The boy done very well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If your goal's up and you want to get these younger players opportunities to play, then I think he came on and didn't look out of place. I think he just settled into the back four, and obviously we got a clean sheet in the end, so he's done his job.
Chris, the first goal for Lundstrom, I'm slightly of the opinion with Lundstrom that I don't think he's shown the levels that he showed towards the end of last season, if you know what I mean. I'm not saying he's playing particularly badly, but he's certainly not hit the levels that he was at last season. But, good goal, all right, took a slight deflection. But, it was on target, had the deflection for the defender, and, good dig, good goal, all that kind of stuff.
It's the type of thing that Rangers haven't done often enough. It's been a big bugbear of mine, guys, just having a shot, because from distance, how many times I was spoken about trying to walk the ball into the net, being too intricate, trying to be too clever. In those types of situations, teams are setting up in that way. That goal's a perfect example of what happens if you just chance your luck. When you are as good a striker of the ball as John Lundstrom is, there's no reason not to be having a pop from 20 to 25 yards every so often. If it goes in straight away, great. If it takes a nick off your player, takes a nick off the defender and goes in, it's also the same outcome. So I think that it's something that's been a bit more noticeable about the team this season. Mostly with Tillman in there, certainly with Tom Lawrence in there. The team do look a bit more willing to at least have an attempt from distance. I think that's something the manager mentioned during the summer as well. He has to see that from the side a bit more often. So I think the signs are certainly encouraging in that front.
Is it not the case as well, Chris, that we always talk about turning defenders in terms of facing their own goal? If you do get them facing their own goal, sometimes a cutback, then they've got to turn again. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's not about the first wave of attackers that are coming in. It's about that second wave of time to runs. Obviously, Scott Arfield's quite good at this, at coming in late. Sometimes it's all about that. Not just looking for who's in the box, who's outside and it can have a dig.
I think, again, one of the main criticisms of last week Easter Road and of Gio's teams domestically have been that a bit predictable at times. It's sideways back, go forward, sideways back, and it can become a bit too easy to play against. But again, when you look at the guys in the team now, Tillman not afraid to try something different. Lawrence can really drive on. As you say, Arfield can get on. We're expecting more from Kent. You need to get more from Wright and Matondo. there is players in there that can mix it up. The team build up doesn't have to be the same rhythm and the same pattern all the time. And the more unpredictable they can be, I think the better results are going to be.
Kathryn, I want to talk about Scott Wright, because I think he gets stick, and I think a lot of it is unwarranted. I mean, I know he has his failings. I think sometimes the end product and the decision making can sometimes be a bit off. But I always feel with players like that, it's the same with sort of most players that are at Rangers. If they were perfect in every way, they wouldn't be at Rangers anymore. They would be moving on to bigger and better clubs. And I just think Scott Wright gets too much stick. You know what I mean? And I think yesterday again, he was involved in the second goal, a good cross for Cholak. It was him that sent Tav away for the cross for the fourth goal. And, talking earlier on about, he is someone who, I think he's someone who turns defences. Okay, he doesn't always get it wrong, especially when he goes and runs. Sometimes he makes the wrong decision, which was shown on Wednesday night in Eindhoven when, he had a chance to lay it off and tried to run through and lost it. But I think overall, I like Scott Wright. I think he brings a lot to the team. I really do. All right, he's no Brian Laudrup or Davy Cooper or any of those kind of guys. But I don't think he deserves the sort of level of stick that he gets. And I think yesterday he showed, and I think Gio seems to rate him as well, because he is getting a lot of game time. And I think yesterday he showed that if you give him a chance, he can sort of produce for the team.
Yeah, I think the amount of games he's played under Gio, I think that speaks enough of what Gio thinks of him. I think you're right in that he does get a lot of stick, probably too much stick at times. But if you look at Kent as well, I think a wide position is a hard position to find that consistency. There's points in the game where Kent's unplayable, and then there's other points in the same game where he's giving the ball away or getting tackled. I think when you're that type of player that likes 1v1 situations, you're not going to get them beat the defender all the time. And I think as soon as Scott Wright kind of loses the ball, you can hear the crowd. But
groans,
yeah. But I think the good thing about him is, just because he lost the previous 1v1, he keeps going again. And like you said, yesterday he's created or played a part in 2 goals. So I think if he scores against Celtic next week, then all those critics will forget about it. But I think he's obviously a good player for us, and he's dangerous, and he's got a lot of pace. So, and Gio keeps picking him as well, so that obviously shows what he thinks.
Yeah, and I think he'll start next week. I'll be honest with you, I think he'll start at Celtic Park. Chris, on to the big handsome striker that we've got. He has a bit of a handsome bastard, let's be honest. He just keeps on scoring. And, another 2 yesterday. I seen Sportscene were saying that the first one was lucky. I suppose you could argue that, but there's no doubt about it. He's a penalty box striker, and, you could maybe argue outside the box, some of his decision-making and play isn't outstanding, but it feels to me it's been a long time since we've had a sort of penalty box striker like that going into games that he's probably going to score, if not 1 then 2. Could have got his hat-trick yesterday if I think Laidlaw had a good save to deny him. The guy got a wee bit of stick after 1 game, I think, the game against Livingston when he didn't score. Folk were giving him stick, and obviously the European game against USG. But since then, he's just been supreme.
You just can't argue with the record. As you say, Colin, I think there's areas of his game that clearly aren't that strong. I don't think he holds the ball up that well in terms of a focal point of the attack. I think people still compare him to Morelos, which is unfair because they're two very different players, and Gio's asking different things from them. Cholak is the type of striker who has traditionally bought at Feyenoord, and the type of striker that he likes to have in his team. If you look at him in terms of what he's good at and judge him on what he's good at, you just can't argue with the record. I think the criticism he got earlier on was probably a bit harsh overall, but in those games it was fair. I don't think in those games he did do enough for the team. I don't think his performance overall was at a level required. Since then, he's just really kicked on, been really impressive. He comes across well as well. I spoke to him a couple of times. Nice big guy, clearly loves it at Rangers, knows what the club's all about, knows what he's here to do. And since he's come in overall, you just can't argue with the record.
Like you're saying there, his performances weren't up to scratch. I kind of felt the service he was getting wasn't that great either.
I think that's one of the things that the team certainly improved on over the last few weeks. I think that it's taken a bit of time for the rest of the players to actually know what his strengths are. If you put the ball in the right area, he will go after it. If you feed him in the right way, he clearly knows where the goal is. I think in the run that he's in, certainly his early goals, they were all really instinctive ones. Even his goal on Saturday was an instinctive one. He knows where the goal is, and he just knows he has to get some form of connection on it to put it across the goal in that area. Lucky, maybe, but I think there's a really smart piece of improvisation there from him. I was really impressed with it. I was really impressed with the goal. I think it has taken just those couple of games and a few weeks for the team to learn, look, this guy, he's not going to be a mile off. He's not going to go and drop deep and do the running and defenders and occupy defenders in the same way that that Alfredo has done for years. But if you play to his strengths, you put the ball in the right areas, this guy will score you goals.
Kathryn, as a defender yourself, if you're walking out with a teammate who's got that level of consistency when it comes to scoring goals, that must give you confidence, as a team knowing, well, we've got half a chance here because if we give this person a chance, they're going to score.
Yeah, absolutely. I've said it for the last few games. I think I really like him. I think if he gets a chance, he'll score. I think yesterday I seen it was 9 goals in 7 games or something like that. So he's here to score goals. I think our fans can be sometimes a bit critical straight away if they don't hit the ground running. I think it does take a few games for players to hit the ground running and get into that kind of match speed. But I think, every game he plays, I think he's getting more and more exciting, and he's obviously scored 2 at the weekend as well, a massive goal during the week. And like Chris was saying, he's just in the right place at the right time. I know the goal on Wednesday was a bit of fortune, it was a good press from Tillman, but he was still there to put it away, and I think that's what type of striker he is. If you give him a chance, he'll be in that position to put it away.
Yeah, and he's got the best hairdo of any Rangers striker since Alan McCoist. I think we can all agree on that. It's a spectacular quiff. Chris, Tom Lawrence, someone who I've got to be honest with you, the first couple of times I watched him, I just wasn't seeing it. No, I wasn't writing the guy off. Obviously, it takes time for new players to come in. I would say yesterday, you really saw. It strikes me as someone who's quite simple, as little as touches as possible, but it's effective touches, and he's obviously involved in that move for Cholak's second, the third goal. Great sort of interchange, him, Kent, and then it finishes with Cholak. He probably should have had a goal himself. I think it was Scott Wright put it over. I think he kind of tried to shoulder it in. I don't know if he meant it with his head, but he probably should have scored. And obviously he had that wee touch as well for Stephen Davis's goal, the 4th goal. So, and he's obviously scored last week at Easter Road. Big involvement through the week there. Starting to really look like a good piece of business, if you ask me. It was a signing that I wasn't overly excited about when I first heard about it and wrote about it. I have to say I was a bit sceptical. I thought he was a championship level player coming in to try and do a Champions League job, but he's done a job in the Champions League for us, and he's certainly done the job that he's been asked for so far. The first couple of weeks, I think you saw wee glimpses of it, but you're now seeing it on a more regular basis. You're seeing him really dominate games and really play throughout matches. As I say, he's got a lovely touch. He's got good vision. He takes up really good areas on the pitch, and he's the type of guy I think Cholak actually needs, because he's the type of guy he will get close to somebody. He will provide support. He's got a bit of pace. I've said he's not afraid to try his luck from distance as well. So having not written him off early on, having been sceptical and been a bit of a doubt over the merits of it, certainly in the last 3 weeks he started to win me over. Yeah, I mean, Kathryn, the game at Easter Road last week, I was on the WhatsApp to my mate, moaning about how poor we were playing and all the rest of it, and I literally messaged him saying, Lawrence has been really bad and he's been really poor, and literally 30 seconds later he scored the header. You know what I mean? So he's making, as Chris said there, he's making him sort of rethink, what he thought of him as a signing. He done it to me within 30 seconds of me saying he was shite. You know what I mean? He is starting to really sort of stand up and become an important player for the club.
Yeah, see, I think I was the opposite. When I heard we were signing him, I was actually quite excited about it. I think I seen his stats and what Chris was touching on earlier with Lundstrom's goal at the weekend, I don't think we did take enough shots last year, and that was one thing that Tom Lawrence was known for, was taking shots from outside the box. And I think he's really looked good. I think there was one of the European games, he was brilliant in the home leg at Ibrox. I thought he was really good, and I think the more they get used to the players they're playing with, I think the better they're going to get throughout the season. And I'm really excited to see how well he does in the Champions League as well.
Chris, on to, as I said earlier on about the sort of system that he played yesterday with just the one sort of sitting midfielder. It struck me for a wee while about sort of Gio's tactics and how fluid he is and how much he changes things in a game, in game. So it looked to me, I always find it quite difficult. I mean, I'm in the Govan rear looking down. I'm always trying to work out, what the formation is. And it looked to me like when the game started yesterday, it was almost like a 4-1-4-1. Then in the second half, early doors, it was 4-1-2-3. And then once the game was sort of done and dusted, we reverted to the two holding midfielders, just the one sort of number 10. And we were playing a sort of 4-2-1-3. And I was just thinking, like back in the day, when I was sort of younger and all the rest of it, it was 4-4-2, and that was pretty much it. That's pretty much what every team played. And, I think Lawrence was the main striker towards the end yesterday. He was sort of playing number 9. And it does strike me that Van Bronckhorst encourages his team, to be fluid in terms of the shape and positions and all that kind of thing, and ask people to play positions that they're not totally, known for. I'm not going to say comfortable with, because that would be unfair on some of the players. But I don't view Tom Lawrence as a striker. But towards the end yesterday, he was playing number 9, and it makes you think that he's always thinking during the game. Always trying to solve the problems, always looking for the next thing to do. I know he's had some criticism about his substitutions, but some of his substitutions have actually been genius, and have worked a treat, especially in Europe. So it does strike me as a manager who's thinking all the time during the game, and what to do and how to change and influence things.
I think it speaks to, one, Gio's adaptability, his tactical nous, and how smart he is, how switched on he is to not just have a plan at the start of the game, but to then change that plan and adapt it and evolve it over the course of it. I think it also speaks to the adaptability of the squad. It's not just guys who are very set in one position. You look at the forward areas, especially, there's guys that can move almost right across. They can move up, they can move back. I say Lawrence could easily play in the middle of the park. He could play wide, he could play one forward. As you say, the weekend he was all playing as the main striker for the last few minutes. I think it bodes well for the squad that they do have those options. There's a lot of games coming up, a lot of big games coming up. The whole squad will be needed, and if you've got a manager that can think on his feet and it can adapt, and you've got players that can think on their feet and adapt, it will help Rangers solve a lot of problems over this run, basically between now and the World Cup break.
Kathryn, from your experience, is that something that you feel is coming more into the game, that coaches are asking players to be more adaptable and fluid and switch into systems and positions?
Yeah, I think so. I think we saw a lot last year in the European run as well, how adaptable the team was. We played different systems when we were home as opposed to away, and I think, like you were saying there, we changed formation quite a lot throughout one game yesterday as well. And in terms of fluid as well, I think players are all over the pitch. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed how many runs Goldson's making forward right now. He nearly scored yesterday early on, and he done it the last game as well. I don't know if it's because I'm centre back and I'm watching, but he's making forward passes and then he's just continuing his runs. But he obviously feels comfortable that he's got that support behind him where he can go forward, and if we do lose the ball, we've got the right players behind him to kind of back him up.
Somebody behind me shouted, "Go on, Beckenbauer," at one of his runs forward yesterday. But you could argue it put James Sands in the situation that he ended up in, 1 punt forward, and all of a sudden he's the only central defender. But I did notice that yesterday about Golson. You're right, he was making runs forward a wee bit like Bugera used to do back in the day. It's good. I mean, it's good. I do think Gio, I mean, obviously there's, how can I put it? I don't want to say that Gio hasn't convinced the supporters yet, but domestically, because of what happened last season, every sort of wee dunt that we get on the road, I just see grumblings and hear people moaning and stuff like that, especially on social media. But when I'm watching the games, you can see there's a lot of thought for Gio and his team in terms of what they're trying to do, and hopefully it'll work out right this season. Right, before we go on to our next topic, guys, I have to mention one of our other partners at Football Prizes, who are currently offering you the opportunity to win a Paul Gascoigne signed and custom framed Rangers shirt. Entry is £3.95 with a maximum number of 199 tickets available. The winner will be picked this Wednesday. It'll be live on the Football Prizes Facebook page from 12 p.m. If you want an opportunity to win that, get yourself onto www.footballprizes.co.uk. So we'll move on to the next topic, Chris. Kathryn, you can sit out this one for the moment, because we're talking about one of your colleagues, so it's probably best that you sit out it. Alfie, Chris, so Gio said yesterday, obviously there was a situation last week, he was dropped for the squad, going out to Eindhoven. Gio said yesterday that, further talks will be held. I think it was either going to be today or tomorrow or some point this week. It appears to me that he's indicating that the door is still open to Alfredo Morelos. If he fixes his behaviour and stuff like that, it would appear that, going by social media and all the rest of it, that Alfie still very much feels part of this team. Congratulating the guys for the result on Wednesday and all that. Where do you think the situation is at the moment?
I thought the manager handled it really interesting last week, obviously out in Eindhoven for the press conference. I think if Morelos was done at Rangers, it would have been clear in the way that Gio answered the questions that he was done. But I thought he was almost like firm but fair last week. He clearly said enough to let everybody know that Morelos had let himself down, let the manager down, let his teammates down, but offered enough of an olive branch to say, look, we know you've not been at it the last few weeks, but if you want to be, there is still a place in this team for you. I know he then spoke about it again in post-match. I thought it was really pointed that he said, Morelos he's earned Champions League as well, and he's pleased for his teammates. And almost every time Gio's spoken, it is another wee positive step towards Morelos eventually coming back in. Ultimately, it all rests on Alfredo's shoulders. If he wants to be a Rangers player, and he's committed to Rangers and committed to the team and what the manager's trying to do, there's a place there for him. If he decides over the next couple of days that Rangers isn't for him, there's no option but to cash in their chips, get as much as they can for him, try and get a replacement in and move on. That Gio said yesterday that the meeting was due to take place today, so we won't find out until the next time that he speaks how that meeting has gone. But I got the impression from the manager he still wants Morelos to be part of his team, but only if Morelos is fully committed to the cause.
Have circumstances sort of worked against Alfie in this? Because I would argue in previous years, Rangers' hand wouldn't have been particularly strong, because we did depend on him so much, and I know he's getting a lot of criticism, which I think is deserved, but I also don't think we should forget the contribution he's made. That period in Gerrard's first season in the Europa League, against Feyenoord and Porto and stuff like that. He was on another level then in terms of the goals that he was scoring. And he scored vital goals all throughout his Rangers career. However, he's also let us down on a numerous occasion. But I think previously, for example, when Gerrard dropped him from the squad against Hearts in the Scottish Cup, Gerrard probably didn't have a strong hand at that particular point because there was no real other options available to him. So, he had to get him fit and get him back in the team. Čolak arriving, has that given Rangers now the opportunity to say, actually, you know what, you do need to change your ways here or the game's a bogey?
I think so. I think that because there has to come a point where even his teammates just completely switch off. He's asked Conor Golson that last week, and he'd already answered a few questions on it and almost fudged it, which was fine because he had to address it fairly substantially. But there must be a point where even the guys in the team that have been with him through that journey know what he's capable of, just want to say, look, you want to just knock this in the head. You're either with us or you're not. If Morelos decides he's with us, he has to be fully on board, has to change his ways, sign a new contract and go on and be the player again that we all know he can be. If there's any hint that in a couple of weeks or a couple of months he's going to go back to these ways, he's going to lose his focus, he's going to lose his fitness, his sharpness. End of the day, no player is irreplaceable. As great as he is on his day, as wonderful a player as he has been over his time, no player is bigger than no player is bigger than the football club. And he must now see Čolak scoring almost week after week, thinking he's actually got a fight on his hands. It's not a case of get myself fit and I walk straight back into the team. He is still the best striker at the club, but he's only the best striker at the club if he's fit and his head's in the right place.
Is there a possibility that, the scenario I'm thinking about, the incident I'm thinking about is Andy Gorham, when Walter Smith put him on the transfer list, principally about 30 years ago now, Gorham wasn't living correctly and wasn't displaying the standards that were required from a Rangers player. Walter Smith slapped him on the transfer list, told him he was out the club, and Gorham sort of buckled down. Given the money that's come in, from the sales of Bassey and Aribo and Patterson, and the fact that the Champions League cash is now coming through the door as well, so Rangers can afford the replacement for Morelos, plus they have Čolak. Is this the kick up the arse he maybe needs? Is this what he needs to sort of focus the mind?
If it's not, then there's probably no hope for him. If he sees all those things happening, all those pieces falling into place, and he still doesn't realise that he's the biggest problem here, unfortunately, no matter what circumstances there are round about him, at the end of the day, if he's at it and he's on it and he wants to be part of it, then he is. If he decides that he can't really be bothered and he's late for training, or his conditioning's not right, or his mentality's not right, end of the day, it's Alfredo's fault. It's not anybody else's fault. And the social media posts with the cryptic messages, and they're all fine and well, and some of the fans might buy into it. But eventually he'll lose the support of the fans as well, because the fans need him on the pitch. The fans need and want the best Alfredo Morelos that they can be. And if he's not, much like his teammates, at some point they're going to need to cut your cloth and say, look, sorry, but we've given you so much support, we love you, but at some point something has to give you. And if it doesn't give in Alfredo's head, it'll give in terms of a transfer.
Is there also an argument, final point before we move on, Chris, is there also a point that he's, we've heard all these rumours through every year practically since he's been at the club that, this club's in from, that club's in from, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, all this kind of stuff. And when he was at his sort of peak, there was loads of speculation about him being moved on. Is there an argument to say that he's undermined his own career with some behaviour?
I would think so, but whether he realises that, time will tell. I thought it was interesting the way that Rangers briefed against him last week, really kind of called out his attitude and his professionalism in many ways. I don't think you could have gone that strongly against him if Rangers wanted to sell him. If you're looking to flog somebody, you don't basically come out and tell the whole world that he doesn't care and he's not fit and his mentality's not right. So I think the way that they went about it last week in terms of how they briefed, but then also how the manager spoke and addressed it so well, they clearly see a way back for him. They clearly, I still think, want him to be part of it. But as I said, that only happens if Alfredo wants to be part of it, and the next coming days will ultimately determine that.
Yeah, right, guys, before we move on, I have to mention our final partners at Zenith Coins, who produce the official Rangers Club coin. Each gold-plated coin has a unique serial number engraved on the inner rim and comes complete with a Rangers presentation box and certificate of authenticity. A rake of famous supporters, including Alan McCoy, Derek Johnson, Marvin Andrews, Tom Stoltman and Gordon Ramsay, all own one of the collections. Zenith have also produced a 150th anniversary collection. There's only 1,872 sets worldwide. They are released in small batches. There are 5 iconic milestones in the coins, which are the founding fathers, Ibrox Stadium, the 1972 Cup Winners' Cup win, 9 in a row, and the 55th league title. If you want more information on that, visit www.zenithcoins.com. Right, guys, on to probably the best news of the week, actually, to be fair. The fact that Rangers are back in the Champions League after a long time. Was it 12 years, something like that? It just feels like a very, very long time. And through that whole journey coming back up, there were times I doubted if it was ever possible for Rangers to be back in the Champions League. Kathryn, I'll come to you. I mean, I don't know how you felt watching the draw, or if you were watching the draw at all. I mean, when I saw Ajax and Liverpool in the same group, I was like, that's a group I want. Just get us in that group. And that's how it turned out. Napoli are obviously in there as well. I mean, it's going to be a tough ask. I mean, you know, as well as Rangers have played in Europe over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, we'll be doing well to finish third in that group and secure Europa League. But some huge nights to come over the next couple of months, you know, and when you consider where Rangers have been over the last 10 years, it's quite a journey, actually. The fact that these nights, you know, Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli are going to be coming at Ibrox.
Yeah, it was so exciting. I remember watching the draw, and obviously they kind of tell you what groups are available for each team when they come out. And I think we were left with groups A and C at one point, but Group C was the one with Barcelona and Bayern Munich as well. So I thought we're probably better with Group A, but it would have been exciting however we got. But obviously Liverpool and Ajax as well, Bassi coming back, that will be exciting. But at the end of the day, whatever group we were in, we're going to have a tough time. But that's the Champions League for you. It's just so exciting for the club to be back in the Champions League, and I think it's what the fans want, it's what the players would want, to be playing against the best. So really exciting, and just looking forward to the nights at Ibrox. The Leipzig atmosphere last year was incredible, and it's just going to be like that every Champions League, and just hearing the Champions League music at the start as well will get the crowd going, and you never know what could happen at Ibrox.
I was going to ask you that, in terms of the dates, do they clash with any of your games in the Champions League? Are you going to manage to get to the games at Ibrox?
I think we should be all right. The best thing is now that we're in the Champions League, it won't move a lot of the games to the Sunday, because that was the issue with the Europa League. Obviously, the Thursday and Sundays, we play all of our games on a Sunday, so we missed a lot of the league games. But I think we should hopefully be all right. Our next Champions League dates, I think, are the 21st and 28th of September. So they might clash, but I'm sure we'll still be keeping an eye on the result either way.
Good stuff. Chris, as I said earlier on, you know, when you consider where Rangers were even just 5 years ago, you know, with Pedro standing on the hedge and all that kind of stuff. But when you take the bigger context and go back the full sort of 10 years, you know, going into the lower leagues, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's been an impressive journey, especially since Steven Gerrard arrived, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. You know, the last 5 years has been an incredible upturn in terms of fortunes and all that kind of thing. Do you feel that, you know, this is the final step in recovery? Can we stop talking about the journey now? You know, because that's been a lot of the narrative over the last few years. This is all part of the journey. This is all part of the journey, part of the recovery of the club. You know, we've reached a European final last season. We're now in the Champions League. We've obviously had, you know, we're doing particularly well in terms of the player sales and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of money coming back into the club. It feels like the club is finally in a sort of stable sort of financial footing. Does this feel like the final stage of the journey? Is the journey over now? Are we back where we belong?
It's probably quite a difficult one to answer, because I think everyone will have a different view on when it finished. That was something, when I was doing the book after the 55 season, it was something I asked a lot of guys, and for a lot of people it was winning the league title again marked that Rangers were back 10 years after starting out in the third division. You know, winning 55 was it. To then surpass that and get to a European final and come so close, and other guys were saying, no, that at that stage, that must be it. But Champions League has always had that end point feel about it, not just playing qualifiers like we did against Malmo last year and against PSV this year. Group stage football has always been something you can hold up and say, this is Rangers back, not just from a financial point of view, but back mixing it with European heavyweights, back where we belong, back at the stage that we all grew up watching and knowing the club to be at. So I think a lot of people will have their own opinion on when the journey ended, but I think we can probably consign that particular phase to the history books now.
What about you, Kathryn? I mean, we went from the ball being stuck in the hedge to, you know, we're going to be walking out at Ibrox in front of full houses against Ajax, Liverpool, Napoli. In your opinion, does this feel like the end of the journey, that, parity is almost restored? Because even when Rangers won 55, as Chris pointed out there, some folk felt that was the moment when we were back. I always felt financially we were still depending on, directors at the club and soft loans and all that kind of thing. The amount of money that's coming into the club now, it feels to me that's the foundation set again. We're now self-sufficient. We've reached that point of, we're in the Champions League group stages. We've got the money that comes with that. We've recruited well over the last few years, and we're selling them at a profit. It just feels like the self-sufficiency part feels to me like that's the end of the journey. Is that how it feels for you?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think when I was growing up, that was the Rangers in Champions League is what I kind of remember. So I think, like you said, the financial gains that we get from it as well, there was no hiding it leading up to the match, how important it would be in terms of finances. And I think obviously it was frustrating that we had kind of done so well in Europe and got that automatic Champions League spot, and then obviously we didn't win the league last year. So I think the fact that we've went through the playoffs as well to get into the group stages, it makes it all that better. And I think definitely this is hopefully the end of the journey now, and we are definitely back where we should be now.
Chris, on that, if this does mark the end of the journey, so to speak, I do feel now, I was pretty pissed off when he left, but Steven Gerrard's under a wee bit of stick. Aston Villa lost again today, under a bit of pressure. When you consider, I think they've got Aston Villa, I've got Arsenal, and then Man City over the next couple of weeks. It doesn't look good for him. It's probably the best way of putting it. I'm seeing a few Rangers supporters sort of kind of laughing at him and giving him a bit of stick and all that thing. But I think we do need to remember. I mean, as I said, I was pretty pissed off with how he done it and when he left. At times, a great healer. And I think, with the benefit of hindsight, we have to look back and appreciate that where we are in Europe, Steven Gerrard was a huge part in that. It wasn't him that got us to the final last season, but he laid that foundation. He was a guy that gave us that consistency in Europe. Which, by the way, I mean, I'm 50 in March. This is probably the most consistent Rangers have been in my Rangers supporting life. Over a sort of 3, 4, 5 year period. I keep on saying to my son, this is going to end at some point. You can't expect this to be the case every single season. And I think, I just think we need to remember that Steven Gerrard was a huge part of that. Him and Michael Beale and Gary McAllister, they came in and gave us that belief. And I can remember that season we qualified for the group stages of the Europa League, feeling, oh my God, we're in the group stages of the Europa League. And then we get out the group stages in terms of qualifying for the last 32 and then the last 16, and then we eventually make the final. And now we've come through 2 really tricky ties to get to the Champions League group stages. He was part of that journey. He wasn't the guy that got us over the line, but he deserves his place in history, I think.
I don't really get the snidiness is maybe not the right word, but I don't get the kind of glee that some people have taken it, and Steven struggles in it. Well, it's not looking good for him, and he obviously faces a bit of an uphill task to try and turn that around. But no, I don't get the animosity towards him. I think circumstances dictated it was probably time for him to leave. In an ideal world, I think he would have left at the end of last season, and that would have taken away a lot of the kind of anger towards him. But I say circumstances at that time meant that he almost had to leave when he did. I can understand why people were upset at how it unfolded, but I don't get the continued. It's almost like a spurned lover. No, he's moved on. He's somewhere else. I think Rangers fans should wish him all the best. And as you say, Colin, just remember what he did for the club. He was the right man at the right time. It was going to take, and not going into that first season after Pedro, it was going to take someone of his stature and his standing, his standards to really drive Rangers forward. And if he hadn't come in at that time, Rangers wouldn't be where they are just now. The European record, the money earned, helped to rebuild that squad. You could tell that night, Ufa, he knew how important it was to get group stage football. The whole Gerrard project kicked on from that night in terms of signings and building into Europa League, and really Rangers hold their own once again after the farce that had been Pedro in progress. Rangers became a European force under Gerrard at that level. Gio's then taken that on. I say the job that Steven Gerrard did for the time that he was here stands on its own merits. And so I don't quite get the animosity towards the people who've taken a bit of pleasure in his struggles at present.
Yeah, what about you, Kathryn? I mean, I think Chris makes a good point there. You know, when you consider where Rangers were in Europe under Pedro and the standards, you know, they'd slipped dramatically. I mean, I felt just by walking through the door, Steven Gerrard lifted the standards of the place. But everything that he's done, I mean, you know, everyone will point to the league in 55, but I genuinely think the stuff that he's done in Europe, you have to remember that, you know, and like as Chris says, I think there's a lot of short memories going on here when we look at, you know, Steven Gerrard's current position and too much sort of gloating and sort of, I don't want to say snidiness as Chris was saying there, but some short memories out there, I think.
Yeah, I agree with what Chris was saying. I think I don't understand why people wouldn't want him to do well. I think he came in, he stopped the attain, he got us that league title that we all wanted so badly, and I think from that moment on, you know, whatever Gerrard done, however long he stayed after that, I always wanted them to do well because he brought that winning feeling back to Rangers. And you know, obviously we've done brilliantly in Europe. I think Gio's came in and just picked up on the squad that he's inherited and continued to improve it. So I think we've got to remember how much of a squad that Gerrard and Michael Beale and stuff built for us. And I think, you know, I really want him to turn it around the Villa. I want to see him do well, and I think he'll just be gutted. Obviously, we've got Liverpool in the Champions League.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think Gio, since he's come in, has done brilliantly. And you know, I just want Gerrard to do well. He's gave us all a good memory in that league title. So hopefully he can turn things around. Yeah,
he broke my heart the way he left, but you know, time's a great healer, as they say, and I don't want to see him struggling the way he's struggling at the moment. So yeah, I just think some supporters need to remember what he done for the club. Right, guys, final point for tonight. Linked to the Champions League and the money that's coming in to the club via that, and the fact that the transfer window closes on Wednesday, I believe, is it the 1st of September, I think. Chris, any further movement this week? Do you think? I have the feeling we might get one more in. What are you thinking?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's business in and out. I think if you look at the outs, there's guys there that are probably too far down the pecking order. Like I said, Carl, I wouldn't be surprised if he moved on. I think if they could find buyers for Roof and Hollander, then they would do, but also the injury issues probably would prevent that at present. In terms of incomings, I think there will be another attacking one. I'm still not convinced we have the right options wide right. So if there was one position, I'd probably go for somebody that can play wide right and also play through the middle. Not asking too much there, I know, but I think that's probably the two areas of the side. I think they could do with another striker, just to provide a wee bit backup, or a goal threat from wide. Because if you look at the guys that are there, Kent, Wright, Matondo, I don't see them contributing enough in terms of goals over the course of the season. So a goal scoring winger, would be my preference.
What about you, Kathryn? Are you hoping for some business this week?
Yeah, I think it's always good just to strengthen the squad. So I'm sure they'll be doing the work behind the scenes, and obviously then come guaranteed now from the Champions League, I'm sure they're trying to strengthen the squad. We'll have a lot of games again with the European games, and we know how busy the schedule gets. So I think they'll definitely be looking to bring people in. I'm not sure what position really, but I think maybe the right winger position could be possibly an option. But it'll be exciting to see what happens this week.
And what about your own squad? You looking for some incomings as well?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't comment on that. I think we have got a really good squad this year, so that's up to the coaches and stuff. I'll stay with that.
Probably best. Right, guys, on that note, I think we'll call time in this week's show. So a big thanks to Chris and to Kathryn for coming on. It's the first time I've had a Rangers player on, so thanks for coming on, Kathryn. I should remind you all that the podcast was live tonight. We were live on a Sunday night, but it will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all your usual places. As I said, big thanks to Chris and to Kathryn for their contributions tonight. We'll have a preview show out on Friday night for the Old Firm game next week, so tune into that. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. In the meantime, guys, see you next week, and bye for now.